Hi there, Roman. Nice to see that you've written your first set of essays for us. Well done. Let's see what you did in this set. The first one is about schools, whether they should be entertaining or merely educate. Let's see what you said. While the educational role of universities cannot be underestimated, there is a number of other effective technologies, such as using the internet in learning process and offering interactive lessons, which schools should also provide to increase students' progress. Okay, there are a couple of problems in this paragraph. First of all, it's not a paragraph. If you look at it, all of this you've written here is just one sentence. So while it's a complicated sentence, you shouldn't allow your introduction to be limited to just one sentence. So try to break it up into 2, sometimes even 3 sentences, okay? So that's the first problem. The second problem is that we're talking about schools, so I want you to think primary and secondary education. There's no reason for us to assume that they're talking about universities here. Okay, so let's remove anything about universities. All right, and then the next thing I want to talk about is some of the grammar, which is somewhat problematic in this paragraph and makes it difficult to follow. So let's look through it again. While the educational role of schools cannot be underestimated, there are a number of other effective technologies, okay, such as using the internet in the learning process and offering interactive lessons, which schools should provide to increase students' progress. Okay, so basically what this is, Roman, is this itself is just a thesis sentence. It's like the last sentence in a paragraph, but you're missing all of the other features of an introductory paragraph, like a rephrasing of the topic, stating what the debate is, and then going into this sentence, okay? Let's move on to your body paragraphs. Firstly, including up-to-date technologies such as the internet in an educational process might contribute significantly to pupils, because you mean more than one pupil, might contribute significantly to pupils' assessment by attracting their attention to a subject. This is directly because these lessons become more entertaining and thus young students spend more time focusing on a discipline. A particularly good example here is Russia Modern University, where students, again, achievement were immensely, I don't care for this expression, immensely boosted. So where students' achievements, or how about performance, increased immensely after computer technology had been included to their curriculum. Therefore, using modern online technology in schools might be greatly advantageous for young pupils. Secondly, involving students in the learning process via interactive lessons also seems to be as useful as beneficial for them. This is due to the fact that during these lessons they might be more immersed in a discipline, which might highly benefit their educational progress. For instance, recent research from Moscow tertiary education schools indicates that students' performance, again with the apostrophes, okay, you mean S', would increase to 30%. I don't think you mean to 30%, I think you mean by 30%. If these immersive lessons were included in their academic schedule. Consequently, this mutual interaction enormously benefits, not advantages. Advantage is not a verb, so you want to say here benefits the whole learning in schools. In conclusion, I completely agree with those who claim that universities should not only act as educational institutions, but also provide a number of entertainment options such as interactive lessons and using computer technology in a syllabus. However, only by doing so can we ensure that pupils will excel in their future academic life. Okay. So this essay got off to a rocky start with your introduction, but it was certainly better as it progressed. You've got the acronym down quite well. You're following the template to a very good degree. There were some little grammatical things happening. There were a lot of problems with your apostrophe, so I'd like you to revise the rules about when we use apostrophe S and when we use S apostrophe. And some of the vocabulary is quite good. There were a couple little problems with some of the words you used. Again, I don't want you to refer to universities here because we're talking about schools, which usually implies primary and secondary education. So if there's one area that I wanted you to develop a little more, I wanted you to talk a little bit about these interactive lessons because I didn't really know what you meant. So I wanted some sort of illustration of what you mean rather than just the research, okay, which you kind of mentioned here. You also mentioned a piece of research, but here I would have liked you to give me a little more specific illustration of what an interactive lesson would be and how it's more entertaining, okay? So I wanted a little more development there. Now, the other thing I want to bring up here, Roman, is something you wrote in your email about concessions. This is a kind of essay that would not require a concession because you seem to be arguing just one side of the argument, which is fine because it also says to you, which do you agree with? Now, if you had chosen to do something more balanced where you talked about why schools should merely educate and then talked about why you think that they should also provide entertainment, then it would make sense to provide some sort of concession here, where you would say, despite the fact that schools should focus on education as their primary priority, there is a case for entertainment in the school system as well. Then something like that would work. I hope that's your question. I hope I understood it correctly, and I hope I answered it. But based on what you wrote in this essay, I don't think something like that would have been appropriate here. Okay, so let's take a look at your second essay, doing an enjoyable activity with a child. Okay. It is often believed that playing computer games might be more advantageous to children's development than reading. I totally agree with this statement to a large extent because this benefits not only this benefits not only a child's physical abilities and skills, but also their cognitive and mental qualifications and intelligence. Okay, fine. Firstly, enjoying computer games develops physical skills among youngsters involved, especially compared to reading. This is because by doing this, children are often forced to act rapidly by reacting to challenging game situations. A particularly good example here is the annual Worldwide Warcraft Championship in London, where all finalists have the ability to click on a mouse button more than 10 times per second to interact with challenges in the game. Therefore, these qualifications would have been hardly achieved if participants had read books. Okay, fine. Secondly, playing computer games allows youngsters to boost their imagination and creativity to unprecedented high levels. To an unprecedented high level rather than reading. This is due to the fact that a successful computer player has the ability to predict the dynamics of the current situation to excel in the future. So a little bit of word order here. As well as this, during the game process, they are forced, or they need to, solve a number of challenging situations and thus develop their cognitive abilities. To illustrate, recent research from Harvard indicates that young players were more creative and were able to predict easily the future reaction of their opponents in reality after having played I don't know what a developing game is, for an hour rather than those who had read a book. In conclusion, I completely agree. You can't completely agree and then agree to a high extent. It's either one or the other. So I completely agree that the benefits of involving children in playing computer games or involving children in, I guess that's fine, involving children in playing computer games far prevail over reading papers because of their significant contribution to a child's physical and cognitive development. However, only by doing so can we ensure that reading would be abandoned in the future. Okay. So this is well done. Okay, again, it's your first set of essays, so I'm quite happy with the level of your writing. You've gotten a lot of things done really nicely. You've got a lot of good cohesion in this essay, using things like this is because, this is due, to illustrate a particularly good example. All of this is very good, okay? And I like it because it's not too much. You don't have too many of these linkers, not too many. You have a variety of them, which is good. So I like that. A lot of the grammar is good. There are some mistakes, but there's nothing that makes it difficult to understand or difficult to read. And a lot of the vocabulary was also fine. I want to go back to your question about concessions. Now, this is an essay that could have had a concession. So let me show you what I mean here. Look at what the essay asks you. There is an argument here. Doing an enjoyable activity with a child can develop better skills and more creativity than reading. To what extent do you agree? So, as far as I'm concerned, I think it is absolutely appropriate to discuss why reading could potentially develop skills and creativity. Okay, I think that that's a good point to start out with. In the first body paragraph, because you can see that there is a comparison here. So I think it's worthwhile to do that. Then, once you have done that, once you have talked about how reading can contribute to these things, then you can create your concession here and say something like, despite the numerous benefits that reading provides youngsters, it is clear that playing computer games is much more advantageous for overall development of children's skills. Okay, and then you can go into your point 1 and your point 2. So that's where a concession would be really appropriate. And I really do believe that this essay does kind of want you to look at both sides, okay? You didn't do it like that. You argued just the one side, and that's okay. One thing I might have liked here is if you had talked about another enjoyable activity rather than just computer games. Okay, because a computer game is just one example of an enjoyable activity. I would have liked to see maybe another type of enjoyable activity that could be done that would develop skills. Okay, but on the whole, Roman, it's a good first attempt. Like I said, there's a lot of nice things happening in your writing. So now let's talk about what you need to do. The first thing you need to do is you need to correct these essays based on the corrections in this video correction. Then you have to send that back to us. You have to send back the corrected essays. The other thing you have to do is create an error correction list where you write down all of the errors that were pointed out to you, and then next to those errors, what the corrected version should be. You need to send that to us as well. And then the third thing you need to do is, of course, write your next set of essays. So, you know, obviously trying to apply as many of the things you've learned from this correction and from the course so far. Okay, so try to do all of this within the next 24 hours or so. This way you can really apply everything you've been learning. I hope to see your next essays very, very soon, and I want to wish you lots of good luck with them.